been able to get a bit more information. This builds upon the podcast a couple of days ago that I did with Danny Payne, the Chief Property Officer here. And what we've got is this map and this table and some clarification on this interesting wording: areas with limited capacity at present.
Wealth HQ, empowering you to take charge of your financial life.
So there's been some further developments in the last 2 days with this Watercare issue, and if you're looking to develop property in Auckland, you already own property, or you want to invest in the Auckland market, you're going to want to know this stuff. Watercare has released some new information about their lack of capacity to supply the investment property market. And so with this massive Auckland property population growth in the next 10 years, you're going to want to know what David here has to share. So he was the former Auckland Property Investor Association president. He wrote this book a while back now. He's been building a big property portfolio himself, and I've been following along. We had to have him back to talk about the Watercare issues. So what's going on, David? You've been talking to people in the know?
Absolutely. I've been into Watercare. I've also run Watercare with the New Connections team, and I've been able to get a bit more information. This builds upon the podcast a couple of days ago that I did with Danny Payne, the Chief Property Officer here. And what we've got is this map and this table and some clarification on this interesting wording: areas with limited capacity at present. What does limited capacity mean? Well, it does mean just that. Watercare have told me something helpful. They're going to honour all of the properties in these areas, particularly those in East Auckland, the North Shore, and much of West Auckland that have had an EPA issued, and they're going to prioritise those with resource consents already granted. However, they cannot guarantee particularly larger projects, and they didn't define what that is, but I think if we engage brain, we can figure out that ones with 10 or more dwellings being supplied are going to have a bit more challenge than someone doing 4 or 5 dwellings. So these are the kind of projects that have some real risk of happening. So in this table that we've got here, there are certain areas that are labelled. In this part, we've got this limited capacity at present. There's some problems with this in the sense that Otara and Papatoetoe, there are some large suburbs in the northern part of South Auckland or Manukau City. What's happened here is these suburbs are already at capacity, so they're actually not areas with limited capacity. Watercare have advised me just this morning that there's no capacity in those areas. They'll honour the issued EPAs, but they just simply don't have the ability to do it. They don't want one to get ladies, in Ethel down the street that's had the manhole overflowed and the lid risen with sewer coming out, wastewater coming out. It's disgusting and non-hygienic. So that's an area that's already out there. They just haven't I asked them about that, so I just haven't got it to the marketing team to do some graphic design work on it. How many more areas in this limited capacity table that'll be bumped to actually no capacity? That they couldn't tell me. So I'll be updating as soon as I know more, but there are certainly areas that are going to be at peril. So if you do have some properties and you have already got a resource consent, but not the EPA for it, the engineering plan approval, or alternatively, if you're about to embark a development or want to, carpe diem, take action now. You cannot delay, because you may be waiting a very long time, in some cases to 2035 to 2040. And let's be honest, since when have Watercare delivered projects on time?
So is this a political decision? Does this come back to the changes in Three Waters? Three Waters was coming in, there's a whole bunch of government money. Now that's come back, is this council-controlled organisation saying, hey, we've been taking a lot of money from development contributions. We haven't spent it wisely. It hasn't been enough. We were expecting the government to jump in. Now they're saying, we can't afford it. You should pay. What's going on?
I think that this is more of a COSCO, a council semi-controlled organisation, in the sense that they don't really control Watercare. Watercare are unelected officials, but it is a company, Watercare Services Limited. It doesn't have the same heat on it as Auckland Transport, but it is still a political beast, and potentially developers actually for the first time need to do what overseas developers, particularly in America, do, and band together, unite, support some pro-growth, pro-density candidates at next year's local body elections. Some of that in your earlier preamble to this question is really interesting. What's going on? Why does this happen? Well, it is political. There was the debate about this Three Waters coming in, and they were going to be put in nationwide. Auckland didn't actually want to be a part of that, though, which is really interesting. And I don't really think infrastructure should be part of any left-right political debate. It's bigger than that. What is the key point of Watercare? It's to be a service organisation. Prior to it becoming Watercare, there were all sorts of predecessor associations. For example, in West Auckland and North Shore areas I love to develop. In the past, they had eco water that's provided them. And so it really is trying to provide the water, the fresh water supply, and the wastewater. Stormwater is dealt with by Auckland Council separately, not by Watercare. So some of it is political. The problem is infrastructure. It's enormously expensive. It's really expensive to do it. It takes a long time to get the consents to build up wastewater treatment plants and water treatment filtration plants and getting consents in for doing that. Auckland is one of the world's most livable cities. That's why it's a true success story. It's beautiful. It's got a warm, temperate climate, relatively stable political climate as well. So lots of people want to come and live here. That's why we're at 1.75 million people, many multiples higher than the next biggest city. Some toss-up between Christchurch and Wellington. That actually doesn't happen in that many countries around the world, to have such disparity between the biggest and the next biggest city. London and Paris are examples for England and France. So politically, what this means is that there's a huge amount of money. It's many billions of dollars that we're talking about. There are some genuine problems, but it is a bit of a cry for help. Come on, government, you can borrow money at very, very low rates. Why don't you come in and fund this? There's a little bit of that going on. This is pretty much a sledgehammer approach, because they could have done this and cherry-picked a few suburbs a little bit more surgically than this, but then I guess they've come down to the issues of fairness. Hey, well, what about us in the next door suburb? Because there's always going to be someone hurting in it. So there are some huge variances in this as well. Just that's not been disclosed. I don't know which wastewater lines have weaker capacity at this stage than others. Obviously know that Otara Papatoa is in jeopardy as well. So there's some political gamesmanship and brinkmanship going on. I think we'd likely to see Auckland Transport being restructured, which requires an act of parliament. I don't think there's the same pressure for Watercare to be restructured.
Yeah, maybe not yet, but it could come. On the economic side of things, does Watercare release its financials, how they're spending money?
Yep, absolutely. You can go to Watercare's site and check that out, watercare.co.nz, to see their financials. You can see a 10-year plan that they've got, statements of intent and all sorts of policy documents on their site.
I'm sure a lot more heat will come on them now when they're failing to deliver on what is expected. No,
absolutely.
Obviously inflation has pushed up costs for Watercare, so maybe that has had a factor in their plans.
Yeah, undoubtedly. They're under some balance sheet pressure as well, and let's be honest, some of the assets they've got are over 100 years old and they're struggling. They've had a lot of demands with things like the Central Interceptor project to try and tidy up things, which really helps a lot of areas, including the Western Bays, trying to get more supply out to the Rosedale, sort of Albany treatment plant as well. There's other requirements to put in treatment plants in the Whangaparoa Peninsula and around Clark's Beach as well, and numerous other areas there. So they're under huge cost pressures as well. The development contributions, which don't actually cover a Watercare portion, so that's separate, and that's called a Watercare Infrastructure Growth Charge. You just paid a 7-figure one there for the 74-lot development in West Auckland, so that was great, because that would have been in an area of limited capacity. So glad that that's done and complete, but do worry if a similar development was being done right now, if that's going to get a no. And with the huge sums of that are outlaid by some developers, the holding cost that comes in, that's going to be a bit of stress. Some of the finance companies are already pretty stressed about what's going on here as well, because there's uncertainty.
Yeah, and I suppose Auckland's been in this tug-of-war match with expanding out versus centralising and expanding up. And
Absolutely.
There was, a few years ago, certainly a push to expand out. Beachlands, Clark's Beach, out west, certainly quite far west, more higher density in East Auckland areas. And these are the areas where Watercare saying they can't supply. These central mainline areas, the terrace housing and these higher density areas seem to not be as affected. Am I misreading some of that? Or
No, you're not, Andrew. Sprawl is expensive. It is absolutely one of the major costs of it is, of course, wastewater. Getting the pipes in, they're really expensive. The pipes, you don't want them to crack. They're not just a few hundred mil below the surface. They've got to be strong. They've got to be able to take lots of weight, lots of load, and to go to meaningful places. Having wastewater treatment plants, it's expensive there, because we're dealing with some huge volumes there that are quite unreal. But many people have actually had the luxury of going on a school tour to see the treatment plants in Mangali, but that's just one of many treatment stations and plants that we've actually got. So there are some genuine constraints here. So with sprawl, though, it's not just wastewater, it's other items too. It's the roads, it's the power, it's the freshwater infrastructure to deal with, amongst many other things. Then, of course, the school and other social factors are part of it as well. So potentially it is a move towards growing up a little bit more, not out, because you'll notice in the map as well that the vast majority of Central Auckland and South Auckland, they are not subject to constraints. So you're able to build up and do that infield or brownfield development, is a term, brownfield development that I talk about sometimes. That's, I think, something that a lot of developers may need to pivot their focus towards those areas. And through this, the sites are likely to become a bit more valuable. The sites in Central Auckland, the old Auckland City Council prior to the Super City move into the Auckland Council, and indeed the old Manukau City Council with the South Auckland sites, East Auckland still affected.
Yeah, and you think there's any sort of technological limitations that are holding back this expansion, or is it just purely a money thing?
I don't think it's so much the technological expansions, although I think we can be better with some of the technologies, the trenching, the pipe technologies that are deployed overseas as well. I do think it's more of a financial one, but some of it's also short-termism. I do think that some of the election cycles in the 3 years that we have, it would be great to actually have a bit of a look at that. So less on the technological side, more on the own goal from a lack of planning, too much short-termism, not enough long-termism. I think there's been some poor long-term capital management that's being deployed by Watercare services, so I don't want to criticise them for that, because it is known that Auckland is going to keep growing. It's a great city. Success breeds success. More people are wanting to come into the nation's economic hub so they can go in and get some of the highest income rates. And most customers, most consumers, for businesses, it's just it's a self-fulfilling prophecy that success breeds success, and it's really hard to stop the juggernaut and the train that's in full motion.
Yeah, and so on the environmental side of things, are we actually seeing major environmental impacts now because the capacity is constrained and the infrastructure isn't there? Is that kind of the main reason that they would be able to justify over and above the finance?
Yeah,
doing this?
absolutely, Andrew. There's a little bit of an environmental impact. Unfortunately, we are seeing some events where there are some combined stormwater and wastewater things. So that's why you get some of the beaches that are shut down during the periods of heavy rainfall, including beaches in the inner beaches like up the Cox's Bay, Point Chevalier Beach, and places like Okahu Bay, Mission Bay, St Heliers, and indeed the North Shore bays, East Coast bays. They can be done. That's not great, and that's not really something we want to do for the world's most livable city. We should be able to go on a beautiful sunny day, even if it is after a couple of days of very heavy rainfall. So there are some environmental factors at play there. There are other environmental factors at play where if the sewer lines are absolutely at capacity and there's just too much load, it will blow a manhole lid, push it up, and then you'll have raw sewage coming up there. The majority of sewage isn't actually what goes down your toilet. It's actually things like your washing machine and your shower water.
Grey water,
So
right?
it's grey water there, so it's not quite bad, but it's still pretty dirty. It's not a great place to be, and unfortunately there are some challenges with that in the network, and it is many tens of billions of dollars to do, and it has not been adequately funded in the past years and decades. So something's had to give, and unfortunately here comes the sledgehammer, and this is why we've got this network capacity map.
Right, and is this a similar challenge faced by a lot of the major cities in New Zealand?
You hear the horror stories in Wellington as well. They largely seen as a dysfunctional council by many Wellington residents, and there's some power plays there between the Labour and Green Party factions that which one should be running that city. Don't know, but
Essentially neither.
It may well be neither. If they keep this up, they've got some massive infrastructure deficits. They've got some inadequate capital management, and they really need to do a few things there. So this is likely to have a contagion effect and not be limited to just Auckland. Wellington's the next one that I think you'll hear a lot about.
So if Watercare can't supply a lot of these secondary zones, tank storing the rainwater part of the solution?
Sure, rainwater is part of stormwater, which is not governed by Watercare. That's governed by Auckland Council. That said, there are some stormwater can creep into wastewater systems, and to some degree it shouldn't, but it does a little bit, even just to things like manhole lids and pipe outlets, and good old tree roots versus council drains is another one I've seen. So
It's crazy that there's two entities and stormwater is separate from the other water entities.
It's a historic legacy thing. There's, well, it probably would be better to have them united under the same umbrella, and potentially there may well be a move to internalise the structures and having the wastewater and freshwater supply put back into Auckland Council. There hasn't been so much pressure from Mayor Wayne Brown for doing that. He's certainly put a lot of pressure on Auckland Transport and been actively lobbying the government for legislation to do that. But I think with the amount of complaints there's spawned, and let's see what happens in the election next time.
I'm guessing Wayne Brown's going to have something to say about this Watercare thing that in the next couple of days, if not a couple of weeks.
Absolutely. He's an engineer. Of course he will.
Yeah, and he's built lots of roads and he's built a lot of infrastructure. So on the legal side of things, you've bought some properties in the last couple of months, and now this change has come through. Have you got any kind of anything to go after Watercare on if they say no?
Yeah, I was talking to leading environmental lawyer Andrew Braggins on this down. He's had a few clients ask him about doing this. He serves many developers, retirement village operators, and they're just getting a bit of information. But he's had some inquiries about making a judicial review on this because there's quite a lot of concern about wanting to do a 200-odd lot development. What do I do about this? Well, so the reality is that judicial review, he said, will actually be a little bit tougher because they can show the old lady that's got the manhole lid that's going out and leaking sewage into her section that she's held for many decades. There are some issues that they could also show with the trucks that have to suck out developments like in Red Hills and Clark's Beach and other places as well. I think there are a couple of thousand of them because they had contracted, they agreed to do it. People like the Mylan Group had done some projects there, so they've got the contract, but Watercare didn't perform. So therefore the houses got built. Well, people are going to be moving into them, just got to take it away. So there are likely to be some legal challenges to Watercare on this. The likelihood of success is probably going to be a little bit harder to get that through judicial review because there are reasons for validity of it. And I think High Court judges would be rather loath to just say, hey, there's not a problem here. I think you've made a genuine mistake. I think they are trying to be guardians of the wastewater and indeed freshwater infrastructure. But the thing is, the limited capacity does give some hope, gives Watercare a little bit of an out because they're not saying no to developments. They're just saying that there are genuine supply constraints.
Case by case.
It will be case by case. But obviously with Otara Papatai on that list, and they freely admitted that there'll be more that will become off that list, even if it looks like it right now. It's on their website that it's on it. It's not. Go talk to them yourself. You can call Watercare 09 44 22 222. I think it's option 4. You can go and ask the New Connections team yourself. They might be waiting for a while because they're a bit stressed at the moment. But you'll find out that if you wait, the longer you wait, the more risks that you've got. So take action now.
Yeah, and so has this been a hidden kind of secret that they've been holding in their back pocket for a long time and now just released, or is it?
Yeah. This is news to virtually everyone I've spoken to about this. It is absolutely news. It is terrible that they've not communicated this as well. They have not sent this out for consultation, and they really should have done this. I think they've failed the public, the Auckland residents and ratepayers on the duty to consult, because this is major. As you say, if you've gone out, spent some good money on site, many millions of dollars in some cases, and expect to develop, and then they tell you that we won't grant you the consent to 2035 at the earliest, that's pretty brutal. There's some people up in arms about it. So you may see some legal challenges on that, just how easy they'll be.
Yeah,
that's a challenge.
And fair enough too. Well, we look forward to more updates.
Looking forward to it. Cheers, Andrew.
So if you'd like to follow along on this Watercare issue and everything else about property investing, hit subscribe and leave a comment if you've got more questions for David.
Financial freedom. Financial freedom.
Wealth HQ, empowering you to take charge of your financial life.